Hi everyone, so today we are going to learn about direct link mode in Power BI. So before directly jumping in to direct link mode, we are going to walk through some fundamental Fabric components. So we have Lakehouse, SQL Analytics Endpoint, Parquet files and Delta tables. So a lakehouse, it is a hybrid of a data lake and a data warehouse. So in this Fabric capacity workspace, I have created a lakehouse, and a lakehouse is where all your tables, Parquet files, all your metadata is going to get stored. Now with your lakehouse, you also get a SQL Analytics endpoint. You can switch to SQL from here. SQL Analytics endpoint, it is a TSQL interface for your Delta tables. You can create queries, you can run SQL queries on your data, you can create views, functions, and stored procedures here. Okay, so now Delta table. Okay, first Parquet files. So Parquet files, they are columnar file storage formats. They are highly efficient and they are used for big data processing. And Delta tables are just combinations of Parquet files but with added structure and transactional capabilities. To use direct link mode, having a Delta table is mandatory. Okay, so we can continue with the PPT. Now, what is direct link mode? So you guys must be familiar with import mode and direct query. So direct link mode is actually addressing the limitations of both import and direct query by integrating its key advantages. So it gives you a performance like import mode but with near real-time reporting. Okay, I'm just going to take the laser pointer. So in direct link mode, Power BI is directly going to access the data in the from the Delta tables in your one lake. Okay, now this underlying concept is very similar to import mode. What happens in import mode is that Power BI stores the data in its memory. Okay, and the Vertipack engine also uses columnar file storage format. Okay, and Delta tables also have Parquet files which are columnar file storage format. So because of this similarity, Power BI can directly access the Delta tables inside your one lake. However, there is a difference in its memory usage. In import mode, Power BI is going to load the entire model, and in direct lake mode, through optimized caching mechanism, Power BI is only going to load the necessary columns. So it is not going to load the entire table, but whichever columns are necessary for executing a query, it is going to load only those columns. Now we'll understand how direct lake mode works. So at point number 1, you have your one lake, and inside your one lake, you have Delta tables and Parquet files. At point number 2, you have Lakehouse and SQL Analytics endpoint. At point number 3, you've created a semantic model with your tables from your Lakehouse, and then you've created a report, and now user is using this report. So when the user opens a report, it is going to generate some DAX queries, and then it is going to request for some data from the semantic model. Now Power BI is directly going to go here to the Delta table and is going to fetch the necessary columns through optimized caching mechanism, and only those columns get loaded now, and then the query results are getting calculated and your visuals are getting populated. So this is how direct link mode ideally should work. Now in some cases, Power BI is going to fail to load columns into memory, and in that case a fallback to direct query happens. So when a fallback happens, the semantic model, the Power BI's Vertipack engine, it is going to go here to SQL Analytics endpoint. Okay, your DAX queries are going to get converted to SQL queries, and it is going to request to some data from SQL Analytics endpoint. SQL Analytic endpoint also gets its data from the Delta tables, and then your columns are going to get loaded into memory. Your query results will get calculated and your visuals will get populated. So this is the working when a fallback to direct query happens. So for this particular query, Power BI is not going to use direct lake mode, but it will use direct query mode when a fallback happens. Now we'll understand the difference between these three modes. So for storage, in import mode, Power BI is going to store it in its internal memory. And for direct query mode, the data stays in its source system. And for direct lake mode, it stays in your one lake. And for data access, DAX queries, they run on your in-memory data in import mode. For direct query, Power BI is going to send so it is going to send SQL queries every time you're accessing the data. Every time you're using the report, it is generating some queries, and every time this data is going to get requested. And for direct link mode, the Power BI is directly going to access the delta tables using optimized caching mechanism. Now here, once the data is cached, Power BI is going to store that data, and it is going to reuse it for the current session. Okay, and this actually improves the performance. Now data freshness. So for import mode, it is static until you schedule refresh the data set or you manually refresh your data set. For direct query, it is near real time, and direct link mode, it is near real time. For dataset size, import mode has a limitation on the dataset size, which is 1 GB per dataset. For direct query mode and direct lake mode, it can handle large datasets, so there is no size limit. For DAX, import mode is going to support all DAX functions, whereas direct query and direct lake mode, they're not going to support some DAX functions. For performance, import mode is the fastest mode, direct query is the slowest mode, and direct lake mode is faster than import mode. Sorry, faster than direct query mode, and it is slower than import mode. Okay, now we'll have a short demo. So here in my workspace, I've created two semantic models. One is in direct link mode and other is in direct query mode. So in this semantic model, if I open this and I'll go to editing, yeah. So I've set if I click the semantic model and if you check the direct link behavior, you have three options: automatic, direct link only, and direct query only. So I've set it to direct link only. That means I'm strictly using direct link mode for this semantic model. So if in case there is a fallback to direct query mode for some queries, then that visual is going to throw an error. If I select to automatic, Power BI itself it is going to decide if it wants to use direct link mode or direct query mode to run a particular query. If I explicitly say direct query mode, then all queries are going to get executed in your direct query. Okay, and the other semantic model, I've just selected the direct link behavior to direct query only. Okay, so that is in direct query mode. So now I've created a report. It is a very simple report, just one visual in direct link mode and direct query mode. So I'm just going to analyze the performance in both of these modes. I already have actually, so it is 1000 milliseconds for direct link mode, and for direct query mode it is 7000 milliseconds. So it is slower than your direct link mode. Now in this file, I've connected to my published semantic model from here, Monday catalog and Power BI semantic model. So from here I've connected to my direct link semantic model. And here you cannot use the transform data tab. If you click, it is going to ask you to switch to direct query mode. And here in the modeling tab, you cannot do any changes here. You cannot rename these columns, or you cannot even like format the data types. If you see here, all of these options, they are disabled, so there's not much that you can do here in the desktop version. If you want to do any semantic model changes, you can do them in service or tabular editor. So also you cannot create new columns, new tables. You cannot create relationships in your desktop version because you're connecting through a published semantic model. So you have to do all the changes on service itself. Okay, so now we can go back to the PPT. Now advantages of direct lake mode: you get near real-time data without setting up scheduled refreshes like in import mode, and you also get a performance which is comparable to import mode due to optimized caching mechanism. Now your one thing is that first direct lake mode is going to load all the data in its cache memory. So initial load It can take some time, but once your data is cached, the performance, it is going to be comparable to import mode. So first load is going to be a little slower. Okay. The models are also lightweight because we are not storing any bulky data. No data movement because all the data stays in one lake, and unlike in import mode, we are not duplicating the data. It scales easily because it handles large data sets seamlessly. Now limitations. So we can use direct lake mode only when you have a delta table in your Fabric Lakehouse. It is not supported in any non-Fabric sources. Row level security and object level security. So if you're creating these at SQL Analytics endpoint, then your query is by default going to fall back to direct query mode. And if you want to set up row level security, you can do that on semantic model level or in tabular editor. So if you're connecting to views, by default it is again going to fall back to direct query mode because you're creating views in SQL Analytics endpoint. Composite models are not allowed, so you cannot mix direct lake tables with tables in other modes. Calculated tables and columns, they are not supported. Some DAX functions are not supported, and you cannot use date time columns to create relationships. If you have a date table and you want to connect the date of your fact table to your date column date, then in your lakehouse only, in your raw data only, that date column should be in date data type. Okay, even if you format it on the semantic model to date, it is still not gonna work. Auto detect relationship feature is not available. You have to create all your relationships manually. So thank you. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching.